Guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Sunday, February 16th, 2025, and today we are going to be talking about the Wisconsin State Supreme Court race that's set to take place in just under a month and a half. The Wisconsin Supreme Court that has often been a general indicator of where the current national sentiment is, as this state is a very competitive battleground state. The Donald Trump won in the last election by a margin of just 1.5%, a state that Biden won by just around a point in 2020, and Trump also won by just around a point 4 years prior. This state is truly one of the most competitive on the national level. Now, Wisconsin's Supreme Court race being competitive isn't news in its own right, but it is what we will learn from these races that really help us understand why they are so important. And when it comes down to what we know about Wisconsin, the state Supreme Court is currently comprised of a very slim majority for the liberal justices for the first time in a very long time. Back in 2023, the Democratic Party, backing Janet Protasewicz, won the Wisconsin Supreme Court race, giving liberals control for the first time in 15 years. After defeating former Justice Dan Kelly, who was defeated for re-election in 2020, ran again in 2023 just to lose again, who is not running, seemingly, in 2025, the race here ultimately now will determine whether or not Democrats and liberals at large maintain their dominance on the Wisconsin Supreme Court race. Looking at these elections back in 2020, for instance, it was a very different set of circumstances. Yes, Biden won Wisconsin eventually in November, but a lot of it was foreshadowed by the 2020 Wisconsin Supreme Court race, where we saw a Democrat, a liberal justice, backed by the Democratic Party, defeating the incumbent Daniel Kelly. Now, again, that matters because the backing here was sort of this proxy war. Although Wisconsin claims these are nonpartisan elections, it is very clear that one side is represented by the Democrats and the other side is represented with the Republican Party. And so when Democrats won this Wisconsin race, they defeated a conservative justice, bringing the majority from what was 6 to 3 in favor of the Republicans down to 5 to 4. Then fast forward to 2023 with Janet Protasewicz again defeating Daniel Kelly. What did this tell us? That the majority would flip from 5 to 4 to 5 to 4, except this time with the liberals in the majority. But in 2025, given that Trump won the state in 2024, should it flip back to the Republicans, they would then have control over the Wisconsin Supreme Court, which means there are massive implications should that come to pass. And a reason why that is because in 2024, the Wisconsin races here weren't just interesting when it came down to the level of the presidential or the Senate race. That was very, very close as well. It also came down to what we were learning in the Wisconsin State Senate and State Assembly races. Let's go ahead and take a look. You see, when it comes down to the Senate races and the House races here, the Democratic Party was in a really bad spot prior to 2024. Democrats in 2022, despite winning roughly 44.6% of the vote, were getting roughly 33% of the total seats in the Wisconsin State Assembly. In 2022, a very similar thing happened when it came down to the Senate races, where the Democrats only won roughly 11 seats, despite winning, on par with roughly 38% of the vote. But even more egregious was the 2018 results, where Democrats had it very narrow, but Republicans maintained a significant advantage in the Wisconsin Senate. But the state assembly saw an even bigger issue in 2018, when Democrats won 53% of the vote and won just 36 out of the 99 seats. Now, fast forward to 2024, here's why it was a big deal. The Democrats flipped that majority in 2023. The courts decided mid-decade that the already drawn state assembly and state senate lines were unconstitutional according to Wisconsin state lines, or the state constitution, and therefore ordered a court-ordered redraw of the state assembly, meaning the Democrats at face value were already going to gain seats, but in actuality, despite losing the popular vote by 2 and losing the statewide vote for the presidential by 2, the Democrats still gained 2 seats across the Wisconsin State Assembly, and the Wisconsin Senate elections ended up now with Republicans at 18 and Democrats at 15, a very close place for Democrats to be in for 2026 and beyond. Should Republicans flip this Wisconsin Supreme Court election, I have no doubt in my mind that we will see this case relitigated and the Wisconsin conservative justices siding with themselves and the Republican Party, changing up the map yet again, allowing for a gerrymander in favor of the Republican Party. Now, this race, for as much as we haven't talked about it, given we've talked about upcoming Senate elections, special elections rather, on the congressional level, on the state legislative side, this race has already started to see its fair share of heavy investments from major donors on both sides of the aisle. And when it comes down to endorsements, again, you have massive names across the state of Wisconsin getting involved. Tammy Baldwin getting involved in what is supposed to be a nonpartisan race. Janet Prudasiewicz endorsing, right? Other Wisconsin Supreme Court justices endorsing. And across the board, you have a number of people that hold weight in the state. The Wisconsin Democratic Party backing Susan Crawford, right? A number of different labor organizations across the state. Emily's List, Planned Parenthood, right? You have a number of organizations that are saying, we are backing Susan Crawford. On the Republican side, Brad Schimmel, I believe that's how it's pronounced. If it's wrong, please let me know. Elon Musk is endorsing him. Seemingly, it looks like we're going to see some money being spent there. All the Republican U.S. representatives from Wisconsin have endorsed him. Ron Johnson has endorsed him, of course, the Wisconsin Republican Party. And the polling that has been conducted thus far from less than a month ago, RMG Research shows that this race truly is anybody's game. Now, I am not someone who thinks that, the Wisconsin Supreme Court election will be the end-all be-all when it comes down to what it means for 2026 and beyond. In 2023, Democrats trounced their Republican opponent in the Wisconsin Supreme Court race, and roughly a year and a half later, Donald Trump is winning the state. So I don't think that there is enough to say that we should be considering these races to be the gold standard for what happens in Wisconsin. But they are good snapshots in time. And there is an argument to be made that in April of 2023, Biden was poised to do better in the election than he was after that really cataclysmic debate in June of 2024. That in 2023, the Democratic Party was in a better place after winning the governorship just 6 months prior in the state of Wisconsin, largely on the issue of abortion. I think when we look at it from a bunch of different angles, we find that the Wisconsin races here, yes, might not predict everything about the state, but help us understand just a bit more. And I think that's something that we're going to see here. But the electoral implications aren't just, alone to this election. We are going to see whether or not this Supreme Court composition will uphold what has been ruled on these existing maps or will overturn them in favor of a political party. A lot of this is going to be, what is decided in the coming 2 years as Republicans leverage this opportunity. Because it is currently, a Democratic seat that is up for election this time, as the incumbent Ann Walsh Bradley who was originally intending to run, decided to withdraw. Susan Crawford, universally pushed forth by the Wisconsin Democratic Party. And so, what we have seen so far is that right now, the Wisconsin Supreme Court race is very much a toss-up, but could be a good litmus test for where the current snapshot is in these battleground states, in reaction to Trump, in reaction to the Republican Party being at this point what would be in April, 3 months into governing. So it'll be interesting. It'll be a very fascinating race to watch, a very close one indeed, and Wisconsin, as the closest swing state from the 2024 presidential election, will certainly be a state and a race to watch over the coming years to see what might happen not only in this 2025 race, but in 2026, 2027, and of course, 2028. So Wisconsin Supreme Court race, definitely competitive, definitely interesting, a lot of eyes on it, a lot of money in it. And it will be a first big test for Donald Trump when it comes down to a quote-unquote nonpartisan race that is absolutely a proxy war, and in what could be a proxy referendum against the incumbent president should his numbers be lower than where they are today. It might even end up being so, regardless of what his approval says on April 1st, 2025. A lot of eyes on this race, and for very good reason. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord server for you to go ahead and join. On the screen, there's a video you can watch, then a playlist for my 2024 post-election analysis videos. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all tomorrow.